We'll call the Public Works meeting of March 16th to order. Number 2, approval of minutes of March 2nd. Motion by Mr. Bargender, second by Mr. Jockey. Questions, comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Citizens' comments, we have none. Review of proposed changes to Chapter 16 of the Municipal Code related to plumbing code. Sam Warp, wastewater superintendent, will start us out.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to introduce Brian Dillinger. He's a plumbing inspector for the city of Marshfield. And he started about 1.5 years ago, and he's been really gung-ho about some of these older codes that really needed to be updated. And most of the Municipal Code Chapter 16, which deals with plumbing, was instituted in 1982. Mm-hmm. So there was quite a list of little things that need to be updated. And I'll turn it over to Brian and he'll go through it.
Thank you, Sam. So as Sam said, a lot of the code hasn't been changed since 1982 when it was originally adopted. There's been changes to the state plumbing code throughout all them years. The agency, Department of Industry Services, has changed names as far as going from Department of Industry, Labor and Human Relations to Department of Commerce, which is now Department of Safety and Public Services. So with that being said, there was needed code changes within our municipal code just to be updated with the current state code. Throughout the packet, most of the changes were grammar, a lot of little punctuation here and there, but there are some significant changes. One of them is to Chapter 16, Section 24, sanitary sewer lateral connections to the main, who's responsible. Another one is Chapter 1624, any new like replacement sanitary sewers. We had designed some new figures for the installations and procedures of how to connect to the laterals, especially the lined laterals. It was kind of a policy, but this way we'll put it into code. Another big change was the Chapter 16, Section 26, where we eliminate cast iron from being allowed for any new sewer laterals, just PVC. And then a little major of a change was we added to Chapter 16, paragraph 27, was who is responsible for damaging laterals between utility contractors and boring contractors. If they hit a sewer, they need to fix it. Just like Digger's Hotline, you hit a phone line, you repair it, unless it's properly marked. So with that being said, my recommendations would be Public Works and Development Services staffs would recommend accepting the updated municipal code, Chapter 16, and direct the staff to prepare the ordinance for Common Council approval.
Motion by Mr. Fire, second by Mr. Jockett. Questions? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Dan, go ahead.
Brian, I should have probably asked you this before. We've talked about this thing long enough, but I'm curious if you had any interaction with our local plumbers on these changes in the code, or haven't you gone that far yet to talk to other plumbers about it?
I have. Most of it, as far as like for sewer connections, they just needed clarity. The big confusion was replacing the laterals. Where do they have to go to? There was nothing really saying that you're responsible all the way to the connection of the main and the fitting, the actual connection. So there was just needed some clarity on that, and that's pretty much what they were looking for.
Right. So I guess my point is there isn't any really hardship. These are things we've been doing in practice for quite some time, but now we'll have a code that reflects what our practice is.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Number 5, award bid for Cleveland Street Reconstruction Project, Central Avenue to Doege Street, presented by Tom Turchi, City Engineer. Tom.
All right, we opened bids for the Cleveland Street Reconstruction Project from Central to Doege Street on Wednesday, March 4th, 2020. 3 bids were received for this work, with the resulting low bid from Earth Incorporated of Arpin, Wisconsin, in the amount of $1,802,527.60. Bids are shown in the table below. The estimated total cost of construction for this project, including asphalt paving items, which we have not opened yet, is $1,995,000. Comparing the cost for construction versus the available funding, there is a shortfall as noted in the cost breakdown below. Local road improvement funding, $105,000, long-term debt, $660,000, wastewater utility at $553,000, wastewater at $482,000. So the total that we have budgeted was a $1.8 million of the $1.995. So there's a $195,000 shortfall. I would recommend that the shortfall of $195,000 be addressed by the utilization of fund balance in the 401 account. Fund balance is a result of the East 29th Street project coming in and the asphalt paving, 2018 asphalt paving projects coming in under budget. So therefore no budget resolution would be required. Therefore, I'd recommend that contract 2020-01 Cleveland Street and Utility Reconstruction be awarded to the low bidder of Earth Incorporated of Arpin, Wisconsin, in the amount of $1,802,527.60 and to authorize the execution of a contract. I further recommend that the shortfall be addressed through the utilization of fund balance as presented.
I have motion by Mr. Fire. Second by Mr. Bargender. Question. Mr. Bargender.
So the 195 is just an estimate of what the overrun would be with the, you assume with the asphalt, once the asphalt bids come in, you're guessing it would be about $195,000. Okay.
Yes.
And what if it's over that?
I would say we got I'd say we're probably real close that it shouldn't be
So your estimate probably is just a little over than more than 100.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Connect.
Yeah, we do include a little bit of contingency in our estimating at this point in the game. So we have a little bit of built in case the asphalt prices would come in higher. I mean, we're optimistic that we'll see them with little or no increases from last year just because of the way the oil market is right now. And that is a big determination of our asphalt prices. But one question I wanted to address that you might have in your mind is how would we have $195,000 left over from these projects here? It's a pretty sizable number. And it breaks down, there's about $160,000 left from the East 29th Street projects and about 30-some thousand on the 2018 asphalt paving. On 29th Street, because that's a DOT project, goes through a little bit different bidding process through the state, and there's a lot more variability of the final project cost, and we have much less control over the expenditures on a project like that. We tend to estimate those on the high side. At this time, things worked out in our favor, and it's come in under our estimates. That's not always the case when we have these DOT projects. You recall our Wildwood McMillan Station Trail, which has been a project we've been working on for a long time. We're just working through the final numbers on that, but that one has come in higher than what was estimated in the past, and partly because there have been a number of delays over the years. But my point is, when we have a DOT project, we tend to estimate higher, a little more contingency in there to cover some unknowns because we have less control over those projects. The 29th Street project in total was about a $3.5 million project. And came in low enough that we have some surplus funds here. We will be doing a wrap up on the 29th Street project at some point too, to let you know the details of how that all shook out. But just know that that's not normally the case that we have that kind of dollars left over. But when we have to budget a little higher on these DOT projects, sometimes that works in our favor. And this time it did.
Any question? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 6, review of options for a post office mailbox on the former Baltus site at 110 South Chestnut, presented by Tom Turchi, City Engineer. Tom.
Okay, we received requests from our elected officials here at the Board of Public Works to take a look at how we could take and utilize the new police storage building and try to manage putting a mailbox in that so that people can utilize it like we used to have in the old post office parking lot. So staff and I took a look at this with some direction to try to create as much stacking and storage off of streets to see how that would work. So if you take a look at the drawing that is enclosed, we basically are running traffic into and around parked cars, and then would have a mailbox located on the exit so that cars would actually stack in the site itself, not on the roads, and then they'd have a decent amount of space to maneuver after they've left the parking lot back out to the stop sign at 2nd and Chestnut. The big thing is to try not to congest traffic at that intersection too much, but to get any stacking that's necessary for people that are utilizing the mailbox to be off of the city streets. With that, I also asked staff to take a look at some proposals for possible sidewalk and curb and gutter, maybe removing the driveway entrance that's real close to the corner of 2nd Street. So we just did some initial drawings of this. So what I would say that if this is more just question and answer session today, but if you were thinking that this is kind of the direction you were looking for in this parking lot, what I'd probably do is propose that we just paint it for now and install the mailbox and go at that route and see how it operates for a while, see if there's any issues with access concerns for the police department and their utilization of this building, and just give it a trial for, let's say, for the summer months and see how that works. At this point, are there any questions on what I'm proposing? What I would do if there's an interest to move forward with this, then maybe would, since there was no recommended action at this meeting, is we do it at the next meeting, or maybe take a look at moving it forward at the council if we're looking at delaying this even further. So any questions on what we kind of laid out here for traffic?
Mr. Bargander.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank staff for moving forward with this. It was my idea, by the way. I'll take a little credit for this one. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He touched me, but I'll forgive him. Question I had, now you said about marking this, Tom. Are you going to be marking the parking stalls as well?
Yes, I think we would mark the parking stalls as well, and those would be utilized by the police department, not by public at this time.
So would not be open for overflow for Wenzel Park Plaza activities at this time? Would it be posted as not?
I think the hard part is if it is utilized for that type of a thing, there might be some issues with access for some of the police vehicles in that lot until I got maybe some feedback from our police chief. Maybe we'd take a look at it at that point, but.
So you would have a broken white line that would go around the parking stalls, just like the pink and the green lines we see here now?
The pink and green lines are just the vehicle overhang lines
Right.
that we use when we do the auto turn template that we have in our computer software. So we can actually see what overhangs would be. So no, we'd probably just paint the, close off the entrance that's closest to the intersection by either putting some barricades or something. And then we just paint the parking stalls and then put the box in. That's just showing you kind of the direction that you would move through there to utilize that box.
Okay.
And I would say that we'd probably end up having do not enter signs off of 2nd Street and enter only off of or off of Chestnut Avenue so that it kind of directs traffic that way through the lot.
Just a little follow-up on that. Was it ever considered to make the approach to instead of going around on the north side of that, go around on the south side of that and have the mailboxes on the south side facing north? You know what I'm saying? If you pull into the parking lot off of Chestnut, instead of going to the right, you go to the left, yeah, right through there.
The problem,
Making a big loop, they would just kind of make a kind of a,
if you made it real
Half of it.
short loop, the
Yeah.
problem is that anyone that's sitting at the stop sign then is currently, you don't, any stacking that takes place currently at that stop sign, you wouldn't be able to get traffic out very easily. By moving it further away, you actually are separating that traffic from the stop sign, and it makes things safer for the pedestrians that are using that corner. And just makes it easier for vehicles to exit out and have a full straight maneuver. If it was real close to the corner, you end up getting vehicles that just come halfway out and they're blocking both lanes, which then clogs up the intersection again.
I guess that makes perfect sense to me. Thank you.
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought maybe what you're suggesting is putting the mailbox here along this curb. So as you come in, you'd still exit out of this driveway, but you would be, right,
Oh,
the mailbox was.
and then
Anybody? Oh, go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
then your stacking is also probably only about 2 or 3 cars in that instance. And during high peak times, like during taxes or Christmas time, when you can see 6, 7 cars that used to be lined up in the old parking lot, this gets that from getting any of those vehicles stacking onto the road itself.
Oh, Dan, go ahead.
I did have one more comment. And that is, in talking with the police chief, they're still feeling out how they're going to use this building here and didn't know how frequently they're going to be in and out of this. And if this mailbox configuration is going to conflict with police department operations in and out of the building. So that the trial period will help us see if there's conflicts that develop with the police department operations, because we're essentially using the whole site for the circulation through here. Initially, Rick asked if we could have the mailbox close to this entrance, and so people could just come in here, use the mailbox, and then zip right out on this first entrance. And of course, if you only had one car at a time, that probably works. But as soon as you get 2, 3, or 4, then they're backing up into Chestnut Avenue, as Tom said. So I think this will be a bit of a work in progress to see what's working and if this can become a permanent solution or not. But in any case, Rick did intend that he would have some employee parking occurring over there during the summer months, especially when it's easier to walk back and forth. So there's still a lot to learn yet about how the site's going to operate, and this would be just part of the mix.
Anybody else? Mr. Jockett.
What if we, looking at this, photo, there is a semi parked right along that wall. Are there doors in that section? Okay, there's. I wasn't sure if that area was complete wall.
Anybody else? Mr. Bargander.
So we're looking at like a 6-month trial over summer. Is that what you're looking for, Dan or Tom?
I think so. I think we're trying to get it in place, and let's try using it for a while and see if there's issues that develop. Let the police department use it with their vehicles. And if there's something that develops over that, we can bring it back to the board and discuss it further.
So we can make a motion to move this forward to the next council meeting for approval?
There's no recommendation.
It's
for
not.
that. Just looking for consensus, I believe, to
maybe that.
go through with this and try it out, because it is a trial. What do you guys think, Dan?
Yeah, our agenda doesn't say there won't be any action on it. Just our background, which is not a binding background.
Right. We can,
this
but
was a
it,
discussion.
you know.
So yes, you could make a motion on this if you wanted.
Mr. Fisher.
I will just say this. I'm very supportive of this idea. I guess, what is the long-term vision that the police department has for this site? You've been mentioning parking, but have you had conversations about what they long-term want to do with the site?
I think there's a combination of things. Most of it's indoor parking with some other vehicle elements in the winter. There's a possibility of some evidence storage in here. The building also has potential. I mean, it's already being used by the street department for some storage. This large building adjacent to the semi is not conducive to get vehicles in there. It's an upper floor with a loading dock, so the street department is storing some materials in that building. So there'll be some activity in and out of the doors there that we just talked about at that building. So I think it's still evolving, but long-term, that they would use this site until something different happens with the primary site.
Okay.
And we
And
don't
the
know
reason
when
I'm
that's
asking is because I keep hearing comments that, this is evolving or, do a trial run and see how the police department react. I mean, it is our property and no offense to the police department, but if this makes sense for the city, I would almost rather us have the conversation now and then find out 6 months later there's issues, because the public might get used to this. And then we say, oh, there's issues, sorry, we got to take it away. Why not just bring all the players to the table, brainstorm what the potential issues may be, so that we can try to get away from starting something and then possibly taking it away. I think it's a great idea. I just think let's be proactive and not just wait for problems to arise.
Sounds like a motion to me.
I'll make a motion, we move forward.
Do I have a second? Mr. Bargander, questions, comments? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Go ahead.
Do we agree with looking at all the players, or are we going to put this thing in?
Location where suggested, I took it as.
That's what I want to know.
Is that agreeable, Tom? Turkey?
It's fine.
Yeah, okay. Number 7, review of parking restrictions on west side of Central Avenue south of 6th Street, presented by Tom Turchy, city engineer. Tom.
Okay, we had representatives of the Marshfield Clinic Pharmacy requesting to prohibit a few parking spaces on Central Avenue to assist with vehicle storage for customers utilizing their drive-through. South Central Avenue is classified as a principal arterial in the city's 2017 to 27 comprehensive plan, and South Central Avenue is posted at 25 miles per hour. Therefore, I'd recommend that we restrict parking on South Central Avenue as noted. Parking prohibited on the west side of Central Avenue from 56 feet south of the south right-of-way line of 6th Street to 106 feet south of the south right-of-way line of 6th Street. And I'd further recommend that we modify the administrative code traffic and parking to reflect these changes. Basically, it removes 2 parking spaces on Central Avenue and allows those to be utilized for turn-in movements for the clinic pharmacy drive-through.
Mr. Fire, motion, second by Mr. Fisher. Comments, questions? Mr. Bargander.
How would that be marked then, that people don't just sit there, and still use it as a parking spot? Would it be marked? I couldn't envision, I don't know how it would be marked, that is a sign that just no parking, but then the people kind of think, well, can I stay here while I'm waiting in line for the drive-through, or?
Basically, it's just we're going to remove the parking restrictions, and people have been kind of pulling into that area. So what we do is remove the parking restrictions, saying no parking from here to, and have a couple signs for that, and basically remove the parking markings that are on the street so that it doesn't look obvious.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Number 8, approval to terminate utility locating services agreement with USIC Locating Services, LLC, and enter into a new agreement with B&M Utility Locating Services, presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works. Dan.
Thank you. You'll recall last fall, we did extend the contract with USIC Locating Services. And our intention at that time was to go through an RFP process, as there was a fairly significant price increase and some change into the terms in that contract. So we've been under this short-term contract since October 1st. I've been working with Nick down at the Marshfield Utilities. Actually, he's taking the lead on this, and I thank him for that. Putting an RFP together and soliciting proposals to secure a new vendor, if need be, for the services of underground utility. We did get 3 responses back, including one from our current provider, USIC. We asked for a variety of pricing in the RFP, but the primary item or the measure is the price per locate ticket. And you can see the summary there. We currently are paying $32 per locate ticket. We had a price of $35 from B&M Locating Services, Excel Underground was $29 a ticket. And USIC gave us a bit of a shocker with a $65 price on their ticket. You might say, well, why was that so high? And it's because the language we were requesting pricing on was more favorable to us versus them. In their contract language that we had previously, they did a lot to limit their liability if something were to get hit. And so it put more liability on the city. When we went out for an RFP, we kind of reversed that a little bit and had more liability on to the vendor. So they had taken more responsibility, and they felt they had to price it that way because the risk was higher. Now, USIC is, I'm not sure if they're nationwide, but they're a much bigger company than these other two that provided pricing for us, certainly within the Midwest and maybe more. So they have a bigger corporate structure and probably more people looking at this, and so their pricing was much different. B&M Locating Services is, they're somewhat local. They're out of Chautauqua, and they do quite a few of the electric utilities in the western part of the state. They've recently picked up a contract here with We Energies in the central Wisconsin area. So they already have a Marshfield presence, and it's a much smaller operation. We're dealing with the owner of the company when we're talking to him about their services. In fact, he's in town now doing locating and training individuals as he's taking on new territory here. XL Underground did come in with a little bit lower price, but they do not have a presence here in Marshfield. They're currently in the Fox Valley. And while they probably could transition here at some point, we felt it would be a pretty big jump for them to move here without any presence at this time. So staff recommendation is to go with B&M Locating Services and to terminate the USIC contract, which has a 60-day termination clause. With all that in mind, we would have a June 1st target date for the new vendor to take over. So again, the recommended action tonight is to terminate the agreement with USIC Locating Services with a 60-day written notice, and then to enter into an agreement with B&M Locating Services with an effective date of June 1, 2020.
Motion? Mr. Jockett, second. Mr. Fire, questions? Mr. Jockett.
All right. We're confident that they are going to be able to provide that service within the current time frame. Usually it's 48 hours, or is it 3 working days?
It
request
depends on the service that's being requested. If it's excavating, it's 3 working days. If it's a planning locate, which we do often for engineering, advanced engineering, then I believe it's a 10-day or 2-week time period. So, but yes, this owner is very committed to customer service and meeting deadlines, exceeding expectations, and it was pretty obvious in our discussion with him, his passion for customer service and his reviews of our feedback from his other clients is very strong.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Fisher.
I just want to say that I'm very much in support of this. I appreciate the fact that we are looking to reduce our liability and be fiscally responsible at the same time. So I just want to commend staff for this, and I am in full support. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 9, closed session. Pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Chapter 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Sale of land at A Street and Hemlock Avenue. I would entertain a motion to go to closed session. Motion by Mr. Jockett, second by Mr. Fisher. Roll call, please.
Butke.
Yes.
Bargender. Yes. Jockett. Fisher. Fire. We are in closed session.